What's up, TBS crew? It's your boy Steph, back with another reaction. Man, one of the OGs of horror content, Corpse Husband, has finally became active again, man. He dropped this gem, two true, verified, scary stories submitted by subscribers, uploaded June 3rd, 2019. I know CH has been sick for a while and dealing with some personal issues and all that issues, my bad. So, I know you don't know me, brother. I know your fans probably don't know me, but I hope everything is good with you. I hope you're doing better. It's good to see you active again. You know, as long as you do it at your own pace, don't rush anything, man. You know, your health is more important than anything. You know, take care of yourself first, brother. But it's glad to see you dropping content again, so y'all know, I had to peep it, man. So down in the description will be a link to Corpse Husband's channel, a link to this original video so y'all can see it for yourselves without my commentary. Also will be links to all of my social medias. Get at your boy and see the personal life that I don't upload to YouTube. Without further ado, let's get into it.
At the end of 2017, I found myself in a pretty sucky situation. My wife had been incarcerated in a federal prison for some white-collar crime she had committed a few years before we got married. She had about 4 more months left in her sentence, but I was having a pretty rough time of things out in the world without her. I got really behind on my bills. I almost lost our place several times, and I had a lot of cold nights with no electricity in the house. And even more nights of going to bed with my stomach burning from hunger. Eventually, I ended up having my car repossessed, which was the worst possible thing that could have happened because of the nature of my work. I was a traveling hotel manager, and without a vehicle, I found myself out of a job as well.
I thought
This was a really shitty thing.
I thought he was talking about his personal life.
Weekend to see my wife, and I definitely couldn't put any money on her books.
It's one of the stories.
I felt
Okay.
like God was really looking out for me when I finally found a job in mid-November. The best part was that the job, which was a Holiday Inn Express hotel, was only a 30-minute walk from my house. The pay was really low and I would have to work overnight, but I got to start instantly and I was so thankful to be able to pay December's rent and to be able to send my wife a few odd dollars to help her out. I'm originally from Detroit, but I now lived in Dallas. Due to this, I felt like a pretty tough guy. The neighborhood I lived and worked in wasn't the best area, but it was nothing compared to where I was from, so I always kind of felt safe.
It'd be like that.
My first couple months at the hotel were okay, but in hindsight, there was so much crazy activity I should have known to get out of there. I spent my nights chasing prostitutes, pimps, crackheads, homeless, and an assortment of weirdos.
Wow.
There had been a couple of robberies in the area, but I figured crap happens everywhere and that I would be fine. Other than that, I checked in a few people during the earlier half of my shift and watched Netflix and YouTube to get through the later half.
Hey.
On my shift, I was pretty much alone other than a night security guard who I'll refer to as Frank. Frank was in his 60s, was unarmed, and only worked about 3 nights out of the week. I always felt that if something crazy happened, it would be me having to provide security for him. I didn't mind, though. Frank was one of those good-natured people that you couldn't help but love. I had been at the hotel for about 4 months when things got weird. My walk to the hotel included going through my rather rough neighborhood, a quiet residential cul-de-sac, and finally a small space of woods before I made it to the hotel.
Wow.
Because I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., I usually left home around 10 so I wouldn't be late. On this particular night, something weird happened. I was a bit early leaving the house, which was cool, but it gave me time to stop at a small convenience store along the way to grab a beer. Outside of the convenience store, under the dimly lit light, stood a man staring off into the darkness. The area was full of all kinds of freaks, so this didn't immediately startle me. The man was big, though, at least 6'3" and built like a grizzly bear. He was a black man who looked to be in his late 20s, not too much different from myself. He was wearing a huge patchy coat that looked as though it had been through a few decades. He had an empty, hollow look in his eyes. I knew instantly that this man was not okay. I can't explain the look in his bloodshot eyes, but I'll never forget it. It sent literal shivers down my spine. After I made my purchases and exited the store, I noticed the man was still standing in the same place, still staring blankly off into the distance. I quickly jogged past him and continued on my way. My heart jumped as I heard the man's footsteps behind me. Now, I'm not a big guy by any means, but I am pretty strong. I could definitely defend myself, but this guy was off. I wanted nothing to do with him. As I continued across the street and towards the woods, I took off. I knew this guy was too big to be able to catch me running. I wasn't even sure that he was after me, but I was not going to take any chances. I outsped the man and made it to work safely. As I began my shift, I locked all the doors of the hotel as was necessary, and sparked up a conversation with Frank, forgetting all about the creepy guy from earlier. At our hotel, we locked the doors at night, and anyone who didn't have a room key had to be manually let in by myself or Frank. Frank left the front desk to do his rounds, and I ended up in the back office drinking my beer as I watched the hotel security monitors and played a game on my phone. My stomach turned over on itself when I noticed on the screen the big guy I had seen earlier standing at the front door of the hotel. He had followed me here. He was standing as still as a statue, just like outside the store.
Call the police.
Staring into the hotel through the glass electric doors. I was pissed. I walked out to the front desk and told the man to leave now or I was going to call the cops. The man didn't move. I knew this guy was trouble and I had to get rid of him before a guest or Frank came from outside and ran into him at the door. I picked up the phone at the front desk to call the police, but when I looked back up, the man was gone. This did not make me feel relieved. I knew he was still out there somewhere, just waiting. The 911 operator assured me that someone would be there soon. I headed back into the office to wait for the cops when I heard gunshots. 3 distinct gunshots. I instantly hit the floor in the office. I frantically scanned the security monitors, but I didn't see anything. I crawled out of the office on my hands and knees, being sure not to be seen as I left the front desk and entered the hall. I nearly shit bricks as I ran into a man while I was escaping the front desk. He was just a guest, though. A guy in his late 20s that I had just checked in earlier. The guy was visibly shaken and he was so pale I thought he was dead. Dude, I think there's a dead body outside my window.
Oh no.
He whispered. My gut wrenched and I thought I was going to puke beer everywhere. Another shot rang out and me and the man both jumped. Come on, I whispered to him shakily. The man and I went back down the hallway towards his room. Both of us crouched down. I was terrified. I knew going outside wasn't an option, so I decided we would hide in the bathroom of his room and call the cops. His room was a straight shot down the hall, but in order to get there, we would have to pass the glass doors of the front entrance.
Why haven't the cops
As we
been called
did,
already?
I saw something that still haunts my dreams to this day. The same huge, weird man was standing directly at the door. His patchy, tattered coat covered in blood down the front of it. He had a sick, twisted look on his face. His eyes were still empty and dead, and in his right hand was a gun. The guy and I hauled ass to his room. As we were at the door to the room, another gunshot rang out, and I could hear the glass from the front door shatter. All I could think about was my mom and my wife. They would never get over me being murdered at a hotel, shot to death by this man. I knew this guy was going to kill us and whoever else he could. The guest and I ran in his room and started barricading ourselves in. I called the cops, but I was freaking out so bad I had to give the phone to the guy to talk to 911. It felt like hours went by, but finally I saw the flashing red and blue lights pull up outside. I have been unfairly harassed by police in the past, and so I'm not too big on cops, but I was so grateful to see them that night.
I bet.
The guy and I peeked out the window, and that's when my heart broke. Frank was the dead body outside the window. He lay still, bleeding out, eyes wide open. I'll never forget that. Never. I've done tons of jobs in my life, and working in a hospice, I had seen plenty of dead bodies before. But this was different. This was someone who was murdered. This was someone I had just talked to less than an hour ago. The police arrested the man instantly. He didn't even put up a fight. He truly was deranged. It turns out that the man had been hanging around the area because he had been removed from the hotel earlier that day. He had had some kind of altercation with my manager and vowed to come back for revenge. The manager had failed to warn me of any of this. I thought this creep was after me, and all of this was happening due to a situation that neither myself nor Frank was involved in. The guy was never following me. He was going to kill someone at the hotel whether I was there or not. I called my boss to come relieve me of my shift or send someone, as I obviously wouldn't be finishing the night. The asshole had no compassion and said he wouldn't be coming to the hotel until his scheduled shift. I finished talking to the police and left a rather nasty resignation letter as I left the hotel completely unattended, but I didn't care. While walking out of the property, I saw Frank in a solid black body bag being put on a stretcher. I cried the whole walk home at 4 in the morning. That was a few months ago. My wife is home now and we moved out of that neighborhood. I never went back to that hotel, and I refuse to work at any hotel or even at night ever again.
Why would you?
I still dream about that night, and I've developed a slight case of social anxiety since then. But I still do shed a tear over the fact that I couldn't save Frank. I know he's with God and resting in peace now. Be safe out there, guys.
Why would you even want to go back to that hotel? Fuck all that.
This story was sent to me around 2 years ago, so the ages and dates mentioned may be inaccurate now.
It be like that.
I want to share the most heartbreaking thing I've ever experienced. In a way, I find it therapeutic, and I'm hoping it could save someone else from ever making the same mistake. This is the story of how I lost my sister at the hands of an evil, so-called human being. My name is Claire, and I live in Ireland. My sister Sonia has always been my best friend. 3 years ago, Sonia came over to my place excitedly telling me about a date she had with a new guy at work named Eric. I was happy for her, as she had just broken up with her abusive ex-boyfriend a few months earlier, and was finally starting to enjoy life, as well as being an amazing mother to her little boy. So as the next few weeks passed, Sonia and Eric had gone on a few dates, but it was nothing serious at all. All seemed to be going smoothly, until one night I got a call from Sonia. When I answered the phone, she was very upset. She told me she had been out with Eric and that she went out to have a cigarette, and a few moments later he came out shouting at her, telling her she was taking too long and that she must have been flirting with other guys. He even insulted her and called her a slut. I was shocked, and understandably so was Sonia. She said he just changed into a different person for no reason. She told me she was finished with him because she had already had an abusive relationship and she wasn't going to go down that road again.
Right.
I agreed that that was the right thing to do. The following day, Sonia was bombarded with text messages from Eric begging for forgiveness and another chance.
Nah.
She told him no way and to leave her alone because she wouldn't accept being spoken to that way.
Restraining order.
But he wouldn't stop texting her. This went on for days, and
Police.
Sonia repeatedly told him to leave her alone. One day, while Sonia and Eric were at work, Eric walked out of the job. A while later, he texted Sonia saying that he was in a hotel with a rope and going to hang himself.
Go ahead.
My sister was a very kind person, so this upset her, and she texted back to not do it and to get help.
Oh my God.
That he shouldn't put his family through the pain of losing him. She also called the police because she was worried that he was gonna do it. A few hours later, he texted her back saying he couldn't do it and that he just needed to see her.
I wouldn't give a fuck.
She told him that she didn't want to meet up, but that he should get help. A few days later, Eric came back into work. Sonia told me that he kept staring over at her and that it was freaking her out. When she got home from work, Eric texted her that there was a rumor going around work that he was stalking her. She replied that she hadn't heard the rumor, but told him that he was freaking her out, always staring over at her. Eric's behavior had Sonia so stressed out that she wasn't able to eat or sleep. Sonia told me she was going to ask to change shifts because of how uncomfortable he made her. Over the next few days, Eric's texts became non-stop, telling Sonia that he needed to be with her and that she was cold-hearted for not being with him.
Block him.
She told him to just leave her alone and move on, and that it wasn't normal that he was acting this way after only a few dates. And then she blocked him from Facebook and from her phone.
About time.
We both thought that that would be the end of that, but we were so wrong. During the next 2 weeks, a guy called Shane had added Sonia on Facebook. Their conversation started off as friendly, but soon became flirty. She seemed to like Shane, and after a lot of messaging, he asked to meet up with her. Sonia had doubts about meeting up, but after a while she gave in and agreed to meet Shane in a hotel.
What?
Please don't judge my sister. She was a good person, and all adults do this stuff at some point.
No.
I know meeting at a hotel was a bad decision for her to make, but this was very out of character for her. And nothing can ever change what happened now. On the 15th of February 2014, it was Sonia's son's 3rd birthday. We were all going to a play center to have a little party for him, and Sonia was going to meet Shane later that night while her son was at a sleepover in our mother's house. The day went great, and we all had fun. So that night, around 9 p.m., Sonia checked into the hotel room where she was going to be meeting Shane. He said he would arrive a little later as he had a few things to do, so Sonia just chilled in the hotel room texting me. The last text I received from her was at 11:40 p.m. The next morning at 11 a.m., my mother called me asking if I had heard from Sonia because she was supposed to collect her son, but she couldn't get a reply when she called or texted her. I tried to call her, but there was no answer. This was very unusual for Sonia because she was always in touch with us. Especially if her son was over, she would call to see how he was. Hours passed and I thought she was just asleep because she may have had a late night or maybe even a few drinks. Nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. My mother and I were sitting drinking tea together at around 4 p.m. when there was a knock at the door. "That must be Sonia," I said, and we answered the door. 2 policemen greeted us at the door, and immediately my stomach sank. They asked if they could come in, and of course we let them in. They told us that Sonia's body had been found dead on the hotel room floor, that she had been strangled to death. My mother and I sobbed uncontrollably. We just couldn't believe what we were hearing. My beautiful sister couldn't be dead. There was no way. We went to the hotel with the police, and to our absolute horror, it was true. Sonia was dead. The next few hours for me were just a blur. Later that night, a man handed himself into police and admitted he had killed Sonia. It was fucking Eric. There never was a Shane.
Right.
It was Eric the whole time. He had set up a fake Facebook page so he could lure Sonia to the hotel and murder her. He gave my gorgeous sister a horrifically brutal death, and we soon found out that he had sexually assaulted her too. Eric sexually assaulted Sonia and then he beat her up. She tried to fight back, so he strangled her. First, he tried to do it with her phone charger, but when that wasn't working, he used his hands to strangle her. And he also shoved her top inside her mouth with such force that it broke her teeth and dislodged her retainer. This was to silence her, according to him. It took 3 years for the trial to begin. The sick bastard pleaded not guilty and claimed he was suffering from a mental illness.
Fuck that.
This made me absolutely sick. He premeditated her murder, there's no question about that. For 2 weeks, my family and I had to sit in court listening to the details of the horrific death Sonia had suffered. We were told now Sonia panicked and said, "Eric, what are you doing?" when he began to strangle her. We were told about how there were broken bones in Sonia's neck from the force Eric used while strangling her. And we got to see photos of Eric's face after he murdered her. He was covered in cuts and scratch marks from Sonia desperately trying to fight for her life. We were also told that there were severe injuries to her private parts from when he assaulted her. Hearing all of this completely broke me. But thank God Eric was found guilty of Sonia's murder. On Friday the 26th of May, 2017, Eric was sentenced to life in prison for murdering my sister. I am so glad he was convicted for making my amazing sister suffer such a horrific death, and for leaving her son without a mother. I am now raising Sonia's son with my own children. After Sonia was murdered, he sobbed for her every night. He didn't understand why his mother was gone, even when we told him God needed her in heaven to be an angel. He still cried constantly because he wanted her so badly. We ended up hiring a child psychologist to explain to him why he would never see his mother again. She told him that a bold man had hurt his mommy and she was safe in heaven now. After that, he was worried that the bold man would hurt him too, but we told him he was in jail now and he could never hurt anyone ever again. Sonia's son is 6 now, and I always tell him about his mother and how much she loved him. I would just like to warn everyone about the dangers of social media. Please be careful and don't meet anyone in hotels. If you're going to meet someone from social media, at least do it in a public place. This error in judgment cost Sonia her life. She was an amazing woman and she didn't deserve the horrific death she got. Here is a photo of Sonia, taken on the day she was murdered. I just want everyone to see the beautiful woman that scumbag stole from mine and my family's lives. I've blocked out her son's face for obvious reasons. The grief I feel from losing my sister is so overwhelming. Even years later, I'm just hoping one day it gets easier to cope with the pain. Hey everyone, quick update. TLDR, it's been a year. I've had some very scary health problems that have hindered me from making content and made things extremely difficult for me. More info on the previous live stream that you can go watch from a week ago if you're curious or want to know me better. I'm trying to come back even though productivity is slow and difficult because of my health problems. But since I've been gone, I haven't had stories coming in as often, which makes it hard to put content on the channel as well. If you have any true stories of your own that you'd like to have featured on this channel, please send them into the email on screen, corpsehstories@gmail.com, with the subject of the email being what kind of story it is. For example, hunting story, hotel story, hiking story, night shift story, etc. Grammar and proof make a massive difference, and I vet stories, so please don't waste my time with anything fake. Thank you for watching this video, especially after I've been gone for so long. You are very, very appreciated. My goal is going back to weekly uploads, but I don't want to hurt myself. I may be a bit slow at first, but that is the goal. Even if these stories didn't scare you in a conventional sense, my goal on this channel is to make you feel something, teach you something that can help prevent something bad in the future, or spread awareness on certain issues. And hopefully through you guys submitting more to me, I can help bring more of that. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and have an awesome day.
Now, that could have been avoided. When his voice started changing up with sorrow, man, I thought I was going, get a little emotional. But man, R.I.P. to that young lady that was sexually assaulted and strangled and eventually murdered by her punk ass ex-boyfriend who should have just gotten the death penalty as opposed to getting life in prison. But I mean, the boys in prison, they go handle him. But I mean, you should have just put a piece of shit like that out of his misery, like off top. And I've said this in multiple videos. If you are a rapist or a pedophile, you do anything to women or children, and occasionally men, you deserve death. You don't deserve to be with normal human beings. You should be by yourself, isolated, in the ground, in a box. Real talk. Like I said, there were a lot of warning signs that the young lady definitely should have picked up on. Why a hotel? And then some random motherfucker hitting you up on, Facebook, social media. Ironically, right after you blocked your ex-boyfriend. Oh. I don't know, fam. That just... There was so many, warning signs like, hey, don't do this. But I'm glad that the family got closure. I'm glad that the piece of shit that, did what he did, got what he deserved. Well, not fully what he deserved. Like I said, I feel like he deserved death, but, at least he got life, so he'll never see the outside again unless it's through bars. So I guess that accounts for something. How is it that, your sister wasn't aware that things like this are dangerous and not very smart to do? That's the only thing that I'm tripping on. I mean, common sense, man. This I don't want to be disrespectful, but I mean, it's just public place, in the daytime, preferably. Like, and bring someone with you, whether it be another female or a male, a cousin, a brother, something. Hell, fuck, man, because that situation could have been so avoided. Or hell, even if she would have went by herself, at least take a weapon. Damn, something, man. Ah, I don't know. I don't know. These stories fuck me up, especially this last one. But like I said, corpse husband, brother, glad to see you're back. Take it slow, man. Like I said, your health is more important than anything else. Man, take care of yourself first, and we will still be here rocking with you when you come back. Because you one of the OGs in this shit. I'm glad you're back, because I'm like, hell, Mr. Nightmare, Unit 522, Lazy Masquerade, B-Buster. Man, all them guys, man, they can't hold it down forever by themselves, man. They need CH on there, man. They need you back up, man. Those guys, they got a lot of love on the internet, man. They can't hold it down forever. Man, they need you to get back in that clique. Hey, you and Dr. Horror, man. Both of y'all got to get back in there, man. Thank you so much for watching my video, y'all. If you enjoyed the reaction, leave a like, a comment, and share the video. And if you really like this, subscribe to the channel and tap that bell icon so you will get notified every time your boy Steph drop new content, which I do 7 times a week. That is all I got for y'all this time around. Man, your boy Steph is out.